Let's bring in Justin Dunk of 3downnation.com, who he says he's got some breaking news, and I don't know if he wants to open up with that. Are we bringing in Justin, guys? What's happening? There he is. Just moving him on over. JD, how you doing today?
I'm well, guys. What about you out there?
We're good. We're good. Do you want to start with the breaking news that you have, and then we'll kind of delve into where things stand with the CFL?
Might as well get to it. The absolute latest, and there was a lot of negotiation list moves over the weekend, obviously, when the NFL teams were cutting down their regular season rosters, 53-man active in the practice squad. So what I can tell you, the absolute latest is Josh Rosen, who has been a hot name in NFL and CFL circles, has been added to the Edmonton football team's negotiation list. Scott Milanovic, the head coach there, obviously just came back from the NFL. Brock Sunderland has ties to the NFL as well. And they have put Rosen on their exclusive negotiation list, which means if he ever did choose to come to Canada, Edmonton would be able to negotiate a contract with the former first-round pick.
It is huge news. But when he was cut from the most recent team, which is Miami, everybody's wondering, why has he been on so many teams and he's so young? What is the story on Rosen?
Well, he's had a lot of offensive coordinators. You look at his rookie season there in Arizona, and he had two coordinators in that first year alone. And Byron Leftwich was the one that finished the year that season with the Cardinals with Rosen, and he's now the offensive coordinator under Bruce Arians in Tampa Bay. So that's the connection right there. A lot of people have felt like he maybe came into the league a little overconfident. He said there were 9 mistakes made in front of him in the draft, and that over the next decade, he was going to prove that every single one of those was indeed a mistake to the franchises that selected in front of the Cardinals in the 2018 NFL draft. And a lot of people are saying maybe that overconfidence combined with being shuffled in and out to different offensive schemes has not led to success yet for Rosen in the NFL.
I have an NFL/CFL question coming up. It actually came from a viewer. But before I get to that with you, Justin, if the Edmonton club is putting Rosen on their negotiation list, that tells me that they believe there will be a CFL in 2021 and beyond. Of course, they have to continue to do business. But you're hearing pundit after pundit after pundit say they really fear for the future of this league. Where are you on where this league is going in 2021 and beyond?
That's right. There is some nervousness for sure out there. Now, I do think that the CFL is going to have the benefit of looking at what the National Football League will do during its season. We obviously saw the opener last night between Kansas City and Houston get off to a solid start with some fans in the stands. So there is some optimism that there could actually be a socially distanced crowd in 2021, but there's just so much uncertainty. And I do still think, Rod, and you've been talking about this on your show, that it's going to look vastly different, the CFL overall. We heard about the furloughs and the layoffs at the league office. You wonder if that's more of a longer-term solution to try to get some of the expenditures down. Jim Hobson was also on your show talking about that overall, that I think, they're going to look at president's salaries, general manager's salaries, just to try to trim budgets for the years that are going to come ahead where the revenues are down.
Every other company's running on bare minimum right now. The CFL is going to have to do the same. Reluctantly, by the way. That's the one thing that we're hearing. Owners, presidents, governors, very reluctant to change, and that might be the death knell of the league. Just some comments from our viewers as we roll. Justin Colin is watching in Ottawa. He says, there is zero chance Josh Rosen is coming to the CFL. His parents are multimillionaires, and he'll live off their money rather than come to Canada. Oh, Colin, did you talk to him? Sounds very similar to Johnny Manziel, who ended up here, and nobody said he would ever come. Let's not forget. Nelson writes in regarding the Rosen signing or addition. He says, have to act as if they don't act as if there's going to be a season, there won't be. So, yeah, you got to go along business as usual. Frenzy, what do you got for Justin?
Justin, you've been around the whole league, I imagine, and in contact with all the teams. What's the feeling overall? Is there some optimism some places, or is it all optimism or all pessimism? Or can you give us a sort of an overall feeling?
There's optimism combined with nervousness because there's uncertainty, and all of us could admit to that we don't know what the world is going to look like by the time we get to next summer in 2021. So that's the sense that I get from talking to a number of people around the league, that yes, obviously the league is going to plan to play, and that's why Edmonton, for example, is putting Josh Rosen on the neg list. They're still going to try to put together the most competitive team and roster overall for 2021. But until we get there or closer to it, we're not going to know what it's actually going to look like.
But a lot of the teams are cutting back staffs in their head offices dramatically. That's certainly not a positive thing for the fans to look at, and certainly for anybody who want to work in those offices.
It's not, but essentially businesses across the country and around the world obviously are going into survival mode, and that's really what the CFL has done. So in a way, I think it can be a positive that if the CFL can share resources between teams. I'll use the Canadian Elite Basketball League as an example. There are people that work exclusively for the Hamilton Honey Badgers organization, for example, and you guys know how the Rattlers are run out in Saskatchewan, but they also have duties at the league level with the CEBL league office. So that's one point that Randy Ambrosie has talked about openly, and I wonder if we see it going forward, where let's say you have the marketing manager for the Hamilton Tiger Cats not only doing marketing in the city for Hamilton and to put the Ticats out there, but also helping share it at the league level instead of have separate people doing it in the league office.
Do you believe that'll happen in reality?
I do think so. I think there's going to be a sharing of resources out there. Now, the form and fashion of that is still being discussed behind the scenes, but it's one way to cut down on your expenditure.
So you mentioned the commissioner. I think you and I talk to a lot of the same people, roll in the same circles. I can't believe the heat he's under. And Justin, you find out who your friends are when the chips are down. Seems like Randy doesn't have a lot of friends. That's what I'm hearing. What are you hearing?
Definitely does seem like the shine has worn off Randy Ambrosie, and for a number of reasons. And I would say top among them, and one of the hotly debated ones, is the CFL 2.0 initiative, the Globals, for example. I had some people say to me this week, what if all of the money that Randy Ambrosie spent on the Global Initiative had been in the coffers right now to be able to save some of the people that were laid off? Because the amount that the league spent, from what I've been told, is well over $1 million on the Global Initiative, and the return to the teams was, let's just say, nowhere close to that, to be quite honest, Roddy. So the example of Ambrosie right now is, does he actually have the commitment behind him from everyone on the Board of Governors? I think it's a little bit split right now. There's going to be some heated discussions going forward in terms of what to do in the Global Initiative and how can they bring in other revenue streams. That really hasn't happened yet since Randy Ambrosie's been in office. You look at Mark Cohen, he tripled the TV deal while he was at the helm of the league. So Ambrosie needs something that he can hold up to say that he accomplished in terms of a new revenue stream or just overall helping the league revenues. Tricky to do in a pandemic, but he needs to have a calling card for his commissionership so far.
Seemed massive growth in the Cohen era, but there was no pandemic during that time too. In a real world, in the real world, a lot of times people will forgive your mistakes if you had the right intentions. And Randy Ambrosie with the initiative, the CFL 2.0, definitely the right decision. And he didn't see the pandemic coming, but the CFL governors don't necessarily do what's right all the time, right? If they can be swayed and there's a vote, I don't think he's going to be around. That's what I'm hearing, and I don't think it's right. But I think the mob mentality is in full swing with the CFL right now. Now, question for you came from a viewer. I'll pose it to you. You've done a meticulous job, you and all your 3-down staff, tracking CFL players signing in the NFL. Which one do you think will have the most significant impact in the 2020 NFL season?
Just former CFLers as Americans or Canadians too?
Both. Either or.
All right, right, so I'll go former CFLers first as Americans. The guy that I really want to keep an eye on is Brandon Zylstra. By all accounts, he caught everything at Carolina Panthers training camp and has really become one of the favorites of Matt Rule, the new offensive guru down there in Carolina. He's a guy that I think has a lot of upside. And yeah, you have some younger players there, DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel, but I think Zylstra could really make an impact. Sam McGuavin would be another one with the Miami Dolphins coming back his second year, most likely as a starter there for the Dolphins, could continue to build on that first season. And then from a Canadian perspective, Alex Singleton, some people might say is a fake Canadian, but after all, he does have that citizenship. And I think he's really right there in terms of having a breakout season for the Eagles. They've made some moves in the linebacking core. He had a strong training camp, made the 53-man roster coming out of training camp, which he didn't a year ago. So I'd really be looking at Singleton as top of the class in terms of Canadians who can make an impact down there. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Chase Claypool. I feel like people sort of take it for granted. He was taken in the second round by the Pittsburgh Steelers, a rising talent. Mike Tomlin has spoke highly about him. Ben Roethlisberger as well seemed to have developed a trust where he can throw up that 50-50 ball. And when you're having former Steelers DBs of the ilk of Ike Taylor compare your body type to LeBron James, and that's just what he did with Chase Claypool, that speaks very highly to his potential in the NFL.
You think he's starting in week 1?
Well, it seems like they're going with Juju Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson as their starters. But I would imagine as the season goes along and Claypool develops that rapport with Ben Roethlisberger and becomes more comfortable with the offensive scheme, that we're going to see him used more and more. I would imagine, especially in 3 receiver sets. And who knows, maybe he gets that starting role if he really makes some plays. Nonetheless, he's going to be a red zone freak, so I think we'll see him lots when they get inside the 20.
Wow, I love it. I love it. Lots of reasons to watch the NFL,
right,
just from the Canadian factor, which I see 3 down is all over, by the way. Great work by you guys. Just from our viewers, before we let you go, Justin, Armando Moreno, global football reporter in Mexico's watches every day. He says, during the week, the LFA's president told me that the CFL's global initiative is staying regardless who the CFL's commissioner is. From Nelson, if Randy does leave office, who are the front runners for the job? Jamie in Halifax writes in, bring back Tom Wright, ... Thoughts? Well, listen, I was friends with all of these guys, or at least knew them. I don't think Jeffrey Orridge would say that we were friends. But Tom and I have talked about his time in the CFL. Mark Cohen and I have talked about his time in the CFL. Who would want to come back to the CFL right now? Who? Tell me.
Nobody.
No, not the way it is right now, Justin. Let's get real about it. And I don't like talking about people's jobs while there's still people in those jobs. And Randy still has it. It's just, you notice there's a groundswell, right? And sometimes it goes so far down the track, that train, you can't bring it back. I don't know.
That's right. I would agree. I think from the league's perspective, it would be difficult to bring in another commissioner, especially one that might be coveted during a pandemic. I think it would at least be likely prudent to ride it out with Ambrosie here until you can get through the pandemic and put that behind you, and then really assess where are we at, what's the job that Ambrosie has done. And rightly or wrongly, the pandemic, I believe, and COVID-19 has magnified potentially some of the issues that Ambrosie was maybe hiding. And that's something that's going to have to be decided down the road, because if you're a league that has gone through missing a 2020 season and is essentially not bringing in any revenue, that's not really an attractive position if you're looking to get a guy in there in the mold of, let's say, the next Mark Cohen.
Absolutely. Justin, fantastic report. Keep it humming at 3 down. We're reading all the time. And stay safe as always, my friend.
You bet, Roddy. Appreciate the shout out. And as you said, we'll be covering the CFLers in the National Football League. We'll be covering Canadians in the NFL and also the NCAA. So lots of Canadian football content still out there to be consumed, even though there's no CFL.
You bet. You haven't missed a beat. Thanks, Justin. Justin Duncan, 3downnation.com, joining us from the GTA.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.